Access granted.
I am back to interviewing streamers and asking them about their background, how they got to Twitch, and their journey as streamers. Do whatever the equivalent of following is on the platform you are listening to this on, so you know when I have dropped the next episode of Stream Machine. If you end up enjoying this episode, please give it 5 stars or whatever that is on the platform you're listening on, so that this podcast can grow. And thank you for that. And a reminder on who I am. I am Minish Gold. I stream on Twitch on Tuesday through Thursdays and on Saturdays, and often more than that. And these days I'm playing a lot of variety. Right now that is Punch-Out for the NES, Strider 2014, and DKC2. And as time passes, I'll be playing other games. But in the end, I stream to be with you, to be with my friends, for the company, to talk, to mess around. And if you'd like to join us and have some fun, please follow twitch.tv/miniaturegold so you know when I'm streaming, so you can hang with us. This is episode 14 of Stream Machine, and in this episode I interviewed SethTheHex. I met SethTheHex through a raid. It was a random raid that I did. I was playing Marvel Snap, and I saw him, so I raided him. And yeah, he's cool. He's intelligent. He's the kind of person I don't expect to just accept what I say. If he thinks I'm wrong, he'll tell me, which I think is great. And yeah, I interviewed him, and I feel like there's a lot we have in common. Like, I feel like our socioeconomic status growing up was pretty similar. I feel like how we obtained games as kids was very similar. Like, as far as now, you can like go to Steam or Epic or whatever you use and you can download the game. But back in the day, like in the 90s, the only option we had if we couldn't buy a game for cheap was to rent it. So yeah, we have that in common. You'll find out about a lot of his interests, like Pokemon, wrestling, retro consoles, board games, stuff like that. So that's really fun. You'll learn about the prejudice that he had to face where he grew up and where he still is. And yeah, overall it was a great conversation. Had a lot of fun talking with them. And yeah, I hope you enjoy it too. And yeah, please go check out Seth at twitch.tv/SethTheHex, spelled SethTheHex. One more quick announcement before I let you listen to the interview is after today I'm gonna have to take a break on making podcasts, and the reason for that is because I want to focus on learning game development, and this takes some time to prepare as far as meeting with them, talking with them, doing the editing, all that kind of stuff. And it'll just make things smoother for me if I could just focus on the game development. And just to help you understand more about why learning game development matters to me, I want to just bring you into my world a little bit. So when I was 8, I wanted to make video games, and I just assumed that it would never be possible. So it's a dream I gave up on a long time ago. And then I eventually moved to Canada when I was 14. I talk about this story later on in the podcast, but basically I bought a Dreamcast with allowance money. I used to be Muslim, and we had Ramadan, and after Ramadan you have Eid, and with Eid you visit all these family friends and they give you money, and I saved a bunch of that. I walked to Superstore in Canada, like about 3 or 4 miles each way, brought back a Dreamcast. I was excited, had the internet, and my mom was looking for a husband. She was divorced at the time, and I was excited to use the internet on my Dreamcast. I found her a husband, and I moved to the U.S. When I was 14. And yeah, when I was 14, I became a little more like introspective and thought a little more about like what I want. And one thing that I wanted was like an ideal world. I didn't know what that meant at the time. As I grew up, that idea became more refined, and I wanted a world, a life without crime, without immorality, people that like care about each other, people that are intelligent, stuff like that. And so what that ended up being was I want people to be like logical and rational. And originally I was teaching classes at the library in logic and reasoning. I had to stop that because of COVID and because of moving. And I want to start those classes up again. I just started up a new job. And the job is going well, but I don't want to assume anything. And so I don't want to start up classes again and be told later, like, oh, it's not working out. And then tell everybody that I'm teaching, like, oh, I looked for a job again, so classes are canceled. So I don't want people to be interrupted because of my interruption of having to look for a job. And so what I'm trying to say is that trying to make as many people as logical and rational as possible is still important to me. And I still want to make games. And the great thing about making games right now is you don't have to really pay anything for it. There's an open source software for that. And if I do have to move, if I do have to change jobs, I don't have to stop making a game because of that. And what I want to do is I want to take all these classes that I made in logic and reasoning and take this learning of game development and marry those two things. And at least that's something that I can do that would be both fun for me and something that I would hope I could make like a positive impact somehow. And so that's why that matters to me, and that's why I would be cutting off time from or stopping making podcasts for a while. And so sorry for the long explanation. I just wanted to explain that to you. I hope you understand. I hope it makes sense to you why I'm doing this, why it's important to me. And I'll continue once I feel like I have more time to make podcasts. In the meantime, I will be trying to learn how to make video games. If you would like to come by, again, I'm at twitch.tv/miniaturegold. If you don't want to, that's totally cool. And that's it. Okay. So thank you for listening and enjoy the podcast.
This is something I've experienced before with Dead by Daylight. Mm-hmm. I don't want to stream the same game over and over again because I started to notice it was building an audience of people who were only loyal to Snap. And that's fine, right? On Twitch, that's the beauty of it. You can watch whatever you want. And there are people who will only watch Marvel Snap, and the moment something else is happening, they're gone. And I started to see that was happening. I was like, okay, I need to stop this for myself, but also for that reason. All right.
Hey, Seth. How's it going?
Hello. I'm good. Always.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thank you for coming on to interview with me. And yeah, I'll be getting an idea of not just who you are as a streamer, but also like essentially your origin story, as far as your personal interests as well as gaming, and your build up to streaming.
I thought it was like an hour.
Okay, well, I guess the question I should be asking is, am I ready for this interview? Okay, so to start off, okay, now I'm bad at remembering things sometimes, but I thought you said you were in the Netherlands. Is that right?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay, how long have you been there for? Like all your life? Or?
Yeah, born and raised. Unfortunately.
Oh, okay. Well, why unfortunately?
All the media, all the stuff I like comes from other places, and like being closer to that would be so much better. So it's always been
like what kind of? Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just always been a struggle with like catching up sometimes. Like nowadays it's easier, but back, even a decade ago, and also when I was growing up, getting games For example, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this game is out in the US and it doesn't exist here. Stuff
Ah,
like that.
okay.
Or even like board gaming still, like role-playing games, board games, like, oh, this game has been released in the US and good luck getting it here.
So, like, do you like for those reasons? Do you wish you were in the U.S.?
Yeah, that and easier with the language sometimes.
Ah, okay, okay. And so, I guess just to get like an example, like, what are games or board games that you got late because of where you are?
Oh, there's a lot. Like one of the first times I remember really having an issue with it was like Pokemon Gold and Silver,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember downloading a ROM for that, which was like totally legal here. Back in the day, it was allowed. No, that's not a joke. Actually, back in the day, we were
Oh,
allowed to.
really?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
okay.
Dutch law allowed illegal downloading. They only
Interesting.
changed that because of EU pressures. But yeah, I remember
Mm-hmm.
downloading that with my cousin, and it was like a fan translation from the Japanese version and everything. And it's like like I think we had to wait like 6 months before it released here. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we downloaded that and we played it. Like I said, over one weekend, we put in 24 hours. We played that game.
Wow. Do you remember when that law changed to not being able to do that?
Yeah, that was like what, like 7 years ago, I guess now.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nintendo must have got a hold of them.
Well, not just Nintendo, it's like the whole EU, but yeah, a lot of those businesses where like music was like literally you could download anything here. It was the Wild
Yeah.
West.
I see. I see.
The law did have provisions for like the music industry and some other what was kind of
Mm-hmm.
like the home copy tax or whatever they want to call it, which
Mm-hmm.
is like every time you buy any sort of like memory storage device, like a hard drive, like even a phone, you have to pay like a little tax for storage. Which is like, oh, if you're gonna copy stuff for your own use, which is allowed, that's the
Mm-hmm.
little extra tax that goes to the music industry to make them shut up.
Um, and growing up in the Netherlands, like, what did you do for fun? I mean, gaming, of course, but like, did you do other stuff as well, or
Mostly gaming. Um,
mostly gaming? Okay.
Played some baseball until I got injured.
Baseball. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
until I got injured, and then that was mostly just gaming, reading, a lot
Okay.
of reading as well, and
Um, sorry, go ahead.
no, go on. I was done.
Um, and then as far as games, like, what were the what games did you play like growing up?
Oof, everything. It started with the original Game Boy, like the gray
Mm-hmm.
brick
Mm-hmm.
stack.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, yeah.
My grandma got one for me and my cousin, so we both had Super Mario Land and Tetris. Like I think these just came with the thing as well, but we both had that one, and it went from there. Like being attached to the device, we got an NES at some point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, rented a whole lot of games back when that was still a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you know the weekend thing was like, oh, it's weekend, I get to rent a video game. That was definitely it. And yeah, it just exploded. Like I played anything, and most of the time it's just like, oh, this box looks cool. Let's get this game. And then you come home and it's like, this was utterly disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
But there was
So
some
I
gems
have
in
to
there.
know, did you grow up in the 90s then?
Yeah, mostly. I'm a late '80s kid, so yeah, like most of my childhood is
Ah, okay.
'90s.
Okay. Yeah, I'm also an 80s kid. I wasn't totally sure.
Yeah.
Because I take this as a compliment, I guess, but I feel like you look younger than me. Um, but probably not by much if you're late 80s because I'm like, okay, well,
Oh, it's not a
I don't know
it's
if I
not a
should say
secret.
my
I'm 36. It's not a secret.
Okay, yeah, I'm 37. All
Yeah,
right.
there you go.
Yeah, so
Yeah, so
um
a lot of the 80 stuff went past me, but the '90s is like where
yes,
I
yes,
remember
yes,
most of the
yes.
things from.
Okay, I have to know then, like, what kind of stuff were you watching in the 90s?
Oh, we had so this is another thing with like the Netherlands. Like a lot of our
Mm-hmm.
cartoons are basically like licensed from the US, and even stuff like
Okay.
anime, like Dragon Ball Z. We
Mm-hmm,
didn't just
mm-hmm.
license Dragon Ball Z from Japan. right? We licensed it
Mm-hmm.
from the US, which licensed it from Japan. So we had to wait
Mm-hmm.
for the US to translate it so that we could subtitle it. So we got like a lot of stuff late. And a lot of it was also dubbed. So we got like the Dutch voiceovers. It was horrible.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of Cartoon Network, because that was English, so they didn't translate
Yeah.
that. So I
Okay.
remember watching like it was called Valiant or Prince Valiant, I think.
Never heard of that one.
It's a medieval knight kind of thing, and the King Arthur and the Knights of
Mm-hmm.
Justice is another great one. It's basically
Mm-hmm.
like Power Rangers, the cartoon with like the Knights of Justice. Is really weird because like the original King
Do they
Arthur.
transform or like?
Yeah, they do. Like the original King Arthur got like
Mm.
trapped, so they transport this like
Mm-hmm.
football team from the modern day who are like the knights is what they're called.
Yeah.
I like the guys called
Okay.
Arthur Knight or Arthur King or something like that. So they transport them there. It's like, okay, you're now just these dudes. Here's your power armor.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of those. Like I can list off names of cartoons I love. It's wild, but there was so many good ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, and I'm just curious, at least the areas that you grew up in, what were the people like, if you can remember?
Oh, okay. So this is something I've talked about a lot, and I'm very open about
Mm-hmm.
this.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to make it very clear. I'm not comparing this with any sort of issues in the world, but where I grew up, we were in a really poor neighborhood. And
Okay.
the area that we grew up in, I was basically one of two Dutch kids. And the other one was my cousin.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, of course, my brother was handicapped, so that didn't really play into that.
Yeah.
But a lot of the kids were from where I was from, Turkish and Moroccan, and there was a lot of how do you say that? A lot of exclusion, where it's basically like
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't speak their language. I didn't practice the same religions, all that stuff. I was the weird kid. I was the
Yeah,
outsider
yeah.
where I grew up,
Mm-hmm.
and that has taught me a lot about like what it's a little bit of what it's like, for people to go through this when they come into a different country and they get treated weird. And like I grew up basically being discriminated against because I was Dutch, which is weird. Like looking back at that now, because I live in an area
Mm-hmm.
where it's now predominantly Dutch people,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so weird looking back at that and think like, why was this even allowed? Not for me, for the record, but for like the government to put all these people in the same area and be like, okay, you're all poor here, enjoy. It's like that. There was
Mm-hmm.
a lot of that happening.
Interesting. Like
So
a classism,
yeah,
like.
yeah, definitely. And
Mm-hmm.
there's also like a lot of people who hated Dutch people for that. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't blame them at all. I remember these we had these two girls who lived right above our apartment.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time we moved in there, you know what kids do, right? You go, hey, you want to play together or whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
this girl's dad just leans out of the window and like shouts at her, and it turns out like she wasn't allowed to play with Dutch kids. Like he just had none of that. And
Crazy. It's
yeah,
interesting.
it's
Mm-hmm.
weird, it's wild. But yeah,
Yeah.
growing up was very isolated in that regard. Like I had my cousin, um, and like at school, like one or two friends, but it was really difficult getting into
Mm-hmm.
into the zone kind of with like people. And it's like as a kid you don't understand what's happening, so it just
Right.
felt weird. And I kind of that's where I kind of embraced like, okay, I'm the weirdo, I guess. So that's
Mm-hmm.
also in that regard has done a lot for me.
So, for that reason, like, was it difficult to make friends then?
Yeah, very. Like
Mm-hmm.
even making friends with like one kid who you know who belonged to the group, so to say, like they were
Mm-hmm.
then like pressured to not continue the friendship, if you get what I mean. Like that don't hang
Mm-hmm.
out with that guy. He's the Dutch kid.
So that so does that mean like hobby wise were you doing a lot of things on your own then?
Yeah, that's the gaming. I
Yeah.
think the
Okay.
first time actually this links in the first time I kind of broke into being like more accepted was because
Mm-hmm.
of Pokemon, and it's really wild thinking back on this because the original Pokemon games were out and it was a craze. Like
Mm-hmm.
you must have been in the middle of this as well. Like everyone was playing
Yeah.
Pokemon and
Yeah, for
like
sure.
talking about it. And I remember they had a Mew giveaway. And it was at the other end of town. And legitimately, my cousin and I, we were like, what, 11 and 10 at the time? We had to take a bus to like the other end of town. And we went alone, by the way. Just like our parents just let us. And we went there and we got our Mews. And we were like, so how does this work? And the woman is like, I don't know, I'm just working, man. It's like, and it was this massive device, and all you had to do was put your Game Boy cartridge in there and make sure you had a free spot in your party. And my cousin and I thought we were just gonna go there and like trade. So we brought our link cables and we captured like a bunch of useless Pokemon so we could trade them away. It's like, no, you just put your game in there. And we're like, can we do that again? And the lady's like, I don't know. So we like put our cartridge in again and it gave us another Mew. And we're like, how many times can we do this? She's like, I don't know. I just fucking work here. So we just kept doing this, and we're literally like taking turns. Like, you know, my cousin's starting up his Game Boy, emptying his party except for one Pokemon, and I'm slotting the thing in there 5 times, getting these Mews. And we're like taking turns for like half an hour. We had like boxes full of Mew, and the next day we came back at school, and we're like kings. We're like, yeah, we got Mew.
The Mew Lord.
Yeah, it was like coming in, like, you know, hey, you want some Mew? We got some Mew.
And I know also you were really into wrestling, right?
Yeah.
When did that start?
Oh, that's a great one. So wrestling on TV was a thing here, but it was usually like late night. So I didn't get to see it a lot as a kid, but when I went into high school, that's where that really became big, because one of my friends there was also into wrestling, and we kind of just connected. And again, Dutch laws, downloading's legal. We found this website where you could just like torrent every wrestling episode, and people would upload them.
Ah, nice.
Yeah, we're just like big into it. And yeah, especially like the later years of high school, early years of university, that I was just wild. Like every wrestling show, like WWE, I would consume everything, and TNA. I think I'm probably the person on the planet who's watched the most TNA.
And have you played any wrestling video games?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, a ton. I think the one I played the most was on the NES. Not on the NES, sorry, on the N64.
Okay. Which one was it?
Was it No Mercy? I forgot the name. God, I'm gonna have to Google that. Wait up, I can't Google this. N64.
While you're googling that, for me, I probably haven't played. I'm gonna guess I haven't played as many as you, but I've played like Royal Rumble for the SNES, and then I remember WWF Attitude was one I played a lot going to my friend's house.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was No
fun to,
Mercy.
like, make your own wrestlers. No Mercy. Gotcha.
Yeah. And I played a lot of the 2K
WCW?
ones. No, that was WWF.
WWF, okay.
I think that one I got because it was on the video rental store. And I think I rented it like 6 times in a row, and the guy was like, yo, you could just take this home. Like, no one wants this.
Man, a time when we could rent games and movies, that's very nostalgic to me. Because I don't know what kind of deals you had where you are, but like where I was in Canada, we had a thing where one of the video stores would say 5 games or 5 movies for 5 days for $5.
That's crazy. Yeah, we didn't have that. We had like, oh god, like you had to sign up. I remember that because I had to bring my dad. But you had to sign up, and I think it was like $1 a day or something like that.
Oh, that's all right.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad, especially as a kid, where it's like I have allowance and I'm bringing it there.
Yes. So, did you rent most of your games in, or I guess you probably only bought the ones that you like really had a place in your heart for?
Yeah, there was a decent mix with buying and renting. Like especially like up until like the N64 days, there was quite a bit of renting. But there were games that was just like I wanted to buy, like Banjo Kazooie, Banjo Tooie. Those are just bought. Pokemon
Hmm.
Stadium 1 and 2, Mario Kart, Smash. Those I bought. There's a lot of saving as a kid, but I also remember wanting certain games and going to the video rental store to be like, I want to know if this game is good before I buy it. Like GoldenEye.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
Like everyone was hyped about GoldenEye. I was like, I'm gonna have to check this out.
Yeah. Is that a game that you played with a bunch of your friends? I think that's what I did when I was younger.
Yeah,
That and Mario Kart 64.
yeah, and Smash. Those three games were like the reason
Oh
I wanted more
yeah.
controllers for the N64.
Yeah,
It's like I need more controllers now.
yeah. And so, as far as like your retro console days, like I guess like pre-Steam, um, were you more of like a Nintendo gamer?
Mostly by just having a Nintendo. Yeah. I wasn't
Mm,
loyal to one or another. It was just like,
yeah.
well, I had a Nintendo and my cousin had a PlayStation, so it was
Hmm.
really easy to just like play with each other's games and be like, oh, I've got Mario Kart and Pokemon Stadium, and he's got
Mm-hmm.
weird Dragon Ball Z game. But yeah, that was mostly it.
Um,
And for me, like it stopped at the GameCube, where I bought the GameCube, and
mm-hmm.
after that, I was in the place where I was actually able to buy multiple consoles.
Ah, nice. What did you get into after GameCube?
Well, I got my own PlayStation 2.
Nice.
Uh,
Yeah.
I got the Wii, got the Xbox 360, and most of the time I was like, I'm buying these things now because there's games that I really want to play. Like Monster Hunter was out on
Yeah,
the Wii. I was
yeah.
like, I need to get that so I can play Monster Hunter.
Um, so no Dreamcast, huh?
Yeah, I know to have a Dreamcast. Fantasy Star Online was one of the big ones there. Like I played a
Mm-hmm.
ton of Fantasy Star Online
Yeah.
offline. But by the way, that was eye opening. When I first connected the console to the internet, that was for Fantasy Star Online. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, whoa, there's so much content.
Yeah, yeah. Um, quick quick little fun fact about me as far as like online gaming goes. Um, when I first got my Dreamcast, my mom was looking for a husband, and I used my Dreamcast for that.
Wait, use the Dreamcast to find your mom a husband?
Yeah. And that's how I moved from Canada to the US, and I immediately regretted it. So,
Mom, I found this guy is also into Dreamcast. You should marry him.
yeah. Um, and then shit, I was gonna ask you another question,
Did
but I
you ever
forgot what it
play that
was.
Leonard Nimoy game on the Dreamcast with like the weird fish thing?
Oh, Seaman.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Seaman is as weird as it looks.
It
Yeah,
really is. I went back later to try and play that one, but it's like, man,
yeah.
it's a sad. I remember seeing it in the video store. I was like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, I think that game will be timeless in terms of how weird it is. I think you can go to any point in time and everyone will say, "Yeah, that's pretty fucking weird."
It's real weird.
Yeah.
I applaud the effort. There's a couple of games like that though, where I'm surprised this even got made, but I'm glad it exists.
Yeah. Hmm.
Have you ever played
Um,
Creatures?
mm-mm.
So Creatures was one of those
Mhm.
first games that tried to put in like AI, like actual learning AI,
Ah,
and
okay, yeah.
you had these creatures that you could raise, and you could like teach them things by like you didn't play as the characters, but
Mm-hmm.
you could like teach them things. So like if they did something bad, you could slap them, which problematic, but and if
Oh,
they did something good, you could reward them, and that's how you could kind of train them to do things.
there's like simulated child rearing, yeah.
Basically, yeah, and it was like that's where AI, like as far as I'm aware, is like one of the first times that they actually tried to use like learning AI in a video game.
Yeah, yeah. That's cool. Um, so going back to the retro consoles. So originally, like you see these games that you really want, you buy the consoles, and these days, like what do you think of that idea of like buying a console because of like games that are on it?
Uh,
do you still have that compulsion or no?
somewhat lessened, but mostly now because of financial issues. But I
Yeah.
definitely bought my Switch just because it's like, well, it's a Nintendo console, and I'm really into Pokemon, and the next Pokemon game
Mm-hmm.
is coming out, so I need to get that. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
I need to stick with that. And my PlayStation 5 as well. I wanted one to begin with, but one of the big motivators was like, oh, Demon Souls free, like, give me that.
Yeah, yeah. I also wanted to play Demon Souls, and I was like jealous that everyone was playing it on PS5, so I ended up just getting it for PS3. And it is not the same, but it is as close as I could get. So,
Honestly, PS3 Demon Souls is so classic. I think I prefer it over the remake, even though the remake is just
oh
objectively
really?
better. I just prefer
Yeah,
the old one.
the retroness of it, I guess.
Yeah, the nostalgia, exactly.
Hmm.
And I'll be honest, my PlayStation 5 is a big dust catcher because it doesn't get used a whole lot.
Yeah, yeah. That's how my Steam Deck was.
Yeah, I remember getting it
um.
because it was like I pre-ordered it when it was announced and went to my game store because
Hmm.
this was when I worked
Hmm.
in the board game store. And the game store was like
Okay.
so close by, and I was friends with all the people working there. And I went and I was like, yeah, I want to
Hmm.
pre-order PlayStation 5. And you had to do a down payment of $50 that they would give back to you if you canceled it. But I already did the down
Hmm.
payment, and then COVID broke out, and I got the call. It's like,
Hmm.
yo, your console's ready. Do you still want it? I was like, oh, I guess I do because it's in so short supply. I guess I'll take it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, and I totally forgot to ask you. So you're also really into board games. Like, what are some of your favorite board games?
Oh, that's mean. So my taste in board games has changed over the years. And I went from
Hmm.
liking like really complex, like long, lengthy board games to like going for the more simple stuff.
Hmm.
But if it like my favorites right now, um, I'm well, I can explain them to you as well if you want. But I really love
Sure.
Nemesis,
Mm,
and we
okay.
talked about this recently. But Arkham Horror, the card game, is really good,
Yeah, yeah.
and I'm really into like Unmatched. It's some of my favorite ones there, and especially with Unmatched. It's a game like 5 years ago I would probably gone like, well, what's this? And now I'm like, yeah, give me more of that.
Hmm. Okay. What is Can you tell me what Unmatched is exactly? Like,
Yeah, so it's a miniatures game, but very simple. Like you have this board with circles on it, which is like the grid basically,
mhm,
and the goal is to eliminate the other character or characters. Like depends on if you're playing, 1v1 or like in teams or whatever. And the way
mhm,
you do this is every character has a deck of cards, so you can get like because the first set was like IP free characters, so you had King Arthur and
mhm,
Medusa and some other ones. Sinbad was in there.
mm,
So you have
mhm,
a
mhm,
character with like a deck of cards, and you don't get to change the deck. It's just all pre-made,
mhm,
and it's so simple because every turn you get to do two things. You have two actions, and you can either move, you can play an attack card, or you can play like a special action card. And you have to do two things always. And moving makes you draw a card as well. And if you have no more cards, you start losing life. So the
mhm.
game has like a very naturally built-in timer as well.
Interesting. Yeah, I
Yeah,
like the timing aspect, and I like that there's like an economy of actions essentially. Like you're limited on how many moves you can do per turn.
yeah, exactly. And the no passing thing is very big. Like you're never allowed to pass your turn. You always have to do something. So it's like, well, I can't attack
Ah,
you
that's
right now,
interesting.
and I can't play a
Yeah,
special action card, so I have to do this. So I have to draw a card.
yeah.
And for some of the characters, that's
Mm-hmm.
like they have the T-Rex from Jurassic Park in there. They have some IP crossovers, and the T-Rex is really
Yeah.
slow, does a lot of damage, has
Mm-hmm.
a lot of health, but at the end
Mm-hmm.
of your turn, you always draw a card with that character. So you're going through your deck even faster. So it's like one of those things where it's like, okay, this character is very powerful, but I'm running real thin on cards.
Right. Okay. I like that. I like that risk, um, that trade-off.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those games I can teach to anyone. Like I can teach it to anyone in
Mm-hmm.
5 minutes. We can be playing, pick a character,
Nice.
don't care what it does, right? Just pick one that's cool. You like Marvel? I got Black Widow, I got Spider-Man. You like mythology, there's everything for anything for that.
Yeah, low barrier of entry games are great for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's
Um,
definitely something I've grown more favorable towards instead of these games just like,
mhm.
okay, before we play this game, I need you all to sit down and follow my PowerPoint presentation quickly. There will be a test at the end,
Yeah.
so pay attention.
Just read this.
Yeah,
Just read this novel, and you'll be ready to play.
And then mid game, you're like, no, you're doing it wrong. And I'm like, well, you didn't explain this wrong. Like, I did. It's on slide 4. You were sleeping at the time, but I did explain.
Yeah, in section 2B.3.
Yeah. Oh god, there's this game called Mage Knight, which is like a 30-page manual, and it's all in like 8-point font or something like that. It's wild how thick that manual is. And there's so many rules, and every time I wanted to play that game, I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to relearn the rules because it's been 3 months. And I looked at the menu, I was like, this never again.
Yeah, I guess that's something that a lot of games didn't think about is like, what if someone puts out your game and comes back later? Like, how are we going to make it easy for them to start back up again?
Yeah, I don't know if you've noticed trend in board game called legacy games.
Mm-mm.
So legacy games are games that evolve over multiple sessions. And you're basically changing the game through your actions. So the first one was Risk Legacy, where you could literally like blow spots on the board up. So in my Risk, for example, Australia was just gone, right? So no more Australia, for example. And that kind of exploded as like a genre, like legacy games. And one of the big ones was like Pandemic Legacy, which is
yep, I remember Pandemic.
Yeah, popular board game. And then they made the legacy version of that just evolved over time. A real cool story in there as well. But one of the problems with legacy games is you need to play it with the same group of people. And you need to play it in like a reasonable time frame, because if I go, hey, we haven't played this in 3 months, when it continues, like, where did we leave off? What did we do? So it's so not easy to pick up and play anymore.
And as far as Monster Hunter goes, the appeal for that, was it because did it have some familiarity with Pokemon for you, or was it just interesting on its own right?
I never really crossed it with Pokemon in terms of why I wanted it. I just really like the idea of, there's this game where you go kill monsters and you make armor out of them so you can kill more monsters. I'm in. Like, I just love the concept, and I love the weapons. So that was my entry to it. It was just like, this looks cool. And I started with Dose, so the second version, the second game. And I kind of just fell in love. Like, it was one of those games where from basically moment one, you were like, okay, it's kind of complicated, it's kind of difficult, the game doesn't tell you a lot, but I love what's happening here, so I want to stick with it. And I legitimately like had to get through like a barrier almost that I forced myself through. But yeah, it was really enjoyable in the end, like especially the art style and just like the coolness of it.
Nice. And then I don't necessarily treat card games the same as board games, and I know you're like you really like a lot of card games too, right?
Yeah, I was a big card gamer.
And actually on this note, I never explained how I know you, and yeah, I mean why I guess I should have explained it at the beginning why I'm interviewing you.
It's a good segue.
Yeah, so yeah, good segue. Yeah, so I can just stitch this and put it in the beginning or something. But yeah, so I was playing Marvel Snap at the time, and I was looking for someone to raid. When I was looking for a channel, and you're like looking at all those like channels and their previews, and I saw a clear shot of you, and in my mind I thought, okay, he looks like a proper nerd. Let me raid him.
Oh, you weren't wrong.
And yeah. So yeah, that's why I'm interviewing Seth, and I enjoy chatting with you, and you seem cool. So
Well, thank you. Yeah, Marvel Snap was a big game for me in that regard, like with Twitch and like meeting people.
Yeah.
But also at the end of that, I was like, I'm glad I stopped streaming it.
That's fair. Why is that?
For myself, sanity, because I like having to perform in Marble Snap was kind of like always being stressful, right? You always because like losing in Marble Snap, once you got the infinite, it didn't really matter. But you're still losing in front of an audience. You're still, like even if you're just messing around with a deck, I got so self-conscious over that, like how it made me feel. And also I this is something I've experienced before with Dead by Daylight.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to stream the same game over and over again because I started to notice it was building an audience of people who were only
Yeah,
loyal to Snap.
yeah,
And that's fine, right? On Twitch, that's the beauty of it. You can watch whatever you want. And there are people
right.
who will only watch Marvel Snap, and the moment something
Mm-hmm.
else is happening, they're gone.
Yep,
And I
yep.
started to see that was happening. I was like, okay, I need to stop this for myself, but also for that reason because
Mm-hmm.
I'm a variety gamer. I have ADHD, and it shows in my gaming habits. It's like I don't want people to
Mm-hmm.
show up who only want to watch Snap, and then once I start playing something else, like my viewership just declines instantly.
Yep,
So
yep.
I was like, okay, it's time to pull the plug. And give myself the break for the Marvel Snapness. I also literally just got diagnosed with ADHD, and the meds,
Mm-hmm.
like getting used to them. I started to
Mm-hmm.
notice that I wasn't really enjoying Marvel Snap on the meds as much because
Interesting.
it just like the pressure of it made my heart race, and like I was like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not working.
You know, and to be fair, like, so I just started playing Marvel Snap again. Even when you're not streaming, it's still stressful.
Oh yeah.
Like, because I haven't played in a while, like I started off at like rank 13, and even when I'm like getting up to 18, dropping into 17, even that kind of stresses me out. So,
Oh, it's so
um,
ruthless. It's
yeah.
like the feel and the pressure of it, and but like, so for anyone who doesn't know Marvel Snap, like the ranked mode, which is like the basic game mode there is, you
Mm-hmm,
collect these
mm-hmm.
cubes, which is basically like what you're wagering, like poker chips almost, right, to get ranks.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
once you get to rank 100, you hit infinite rank, and at that point, it doesn't really matter anymore. That's an internal leaderboard, but whatever, you're there, you did it. But the
Mm-hmm,
grind to infinite, especially before they changed it, because they made it a little easier now. But oh, it was
mm-hmm.
brutal. It was so punishing, and like being at like rank 99, right? And then like you take
Yep.
like two or three losses, and you're like staring at 97. You're like, I just.
Yeah, yeah.
And the worst thing
And
in
each.
that game, and this is definitely coming from a
Mm-hmm,
brag spot because I hit infinite every season since I
mm-hmm.
like it like since January. But the worst thing is there's bots on the ladder. So sometimes you play against the bot, and like I've learned to
Mm,
identify them. I know when I'm playing against the bot like that now because they're so easy to tell
mm-hmm,
apart. And then
mm-hmm.
like 4 seasons in a row now, I've hit infinite against the bot. I'm like, thanks, man.
They're like, we're here for you.
It's like I'm almost there. You like rank 99, and then you get queued up against
Yeah,
the bot. I'm like, well, I know I'm gonna get free 4 cubes because I know how to manipulate them and how to play against them. And then you win. You're
yeah,
like, oh, I'm
yeah.
infinite. Doesn't feel cool.
Well, at least you get yourself past the point of, being the place where you can be stressed.
Yeah, it's funny to me when you're playing on infinite, and sometimes because the game will tell you like this is where you rank up against every other player in infinite rank,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll be like, oh, you're ranked like 6,000. I think that's the highest I've ever gotten. And
Ah,
then you like stop playing for the day, and the next day you log in, and because everyone else is playing, like your rank just
yeah.
drops because people are passing you. It's like, well, now I'm rank 8,000, so yay, thanks for that.
That's just another layer of stress.
I don't care where I place in that regard. I don't care, and the game also
Okay,
doesn't
that's
care
good.
because I've played against like the
Yeah.
rank 60 or something like that at some point. It's like I was
Oh,
like
okay.
literally ranked like 20,000 or something like that, and it's like I queued up against the rank
Mm-hmm.
60. I'm like, you're telling me that out of all the people you could have matchmade me against, like all the other 20,000 people between us, this is the one? Thanks.
Oh yeah, sorry, they were all busy.
Yeah. I won though.
Yeah. No, oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. GG. So
I mean,
when
that
are you getting
happens.
your 59th place? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I
Or your
said. I was like,
60th
hey,
place?
give me that
Yeah.
place.
There was another question I want to ask you before we get into streaming stuff.
Hmm.
I never asked you if you did anything like what you did for like education. Did you like go to university or anything or?
Yeah. So originally, I'm again ADHD. Right now I know.
Hmm.
Back then I didn't. Originally, I wanted to become a forensic scientist. Oh boy, was I
Oh,
wrong.
okay.
Uh,
Okay. I wonder if that ties back into Seth Crimesman.
no. Funny enough, no, but it could be.
Okay.
Seth Crimson is my detective alter ego.
Yeah, yeah.
But no, originally like it was basically because of CSI, and I was like, oh, this looks cool.
Ah,
And
okay, yeah.
then I went to school, and I came in and I was like, this is so not it. Like all the math, and like I don't mind math, but it was just so not what I expected it to be. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, the real life isn't like CSI. Shock. But it was just very boring. Like one of the worst things as well is, and this is something they're kind of getting cognizant about now, but the jump from high school to university is, oh my god, it's a smack in the face.
Mm-hmm.
It's you go from, especially me, because I literally was like, I never studied for tests, I never did my homework, and I was like, I basically
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, slouched through high school
Mm-hmm.
and with like passable grades,
Yeah.
and then you come from a place where you have responsibilities, you have like a schedule, you have like, homework classes specifically to making your homework and stuff like that. And then you come into
Mm-hmm.
university where like, good luck, you're on your own. I'm like, are you giving me any sort of guidance? Nope, you're on your own. And one of the worst things was like every week we had an 8 hour, um how do you call it, like basically lab work, where you're like learning how to work in the lab and like, doing stuff there. And it was 8 hours long, and it was just
Yeah, it's like a job.
horrible. It's so
Yeah.
bad. So yeah, that wasn't for me. Then I decided to go for IT,
Oh, okay, yeah.
um graphics design and communication it was called. And that
Mm-hmm.
was fun, that was all right. But I it's weird because I got into this like weird mental state. This is the ADHD thing. Like now I can look back at it and be like, this was the problem, but back then I didn't know. But I get into this
Mm-hmm.
like mental health crisis state, and I was like, I need to do something else, anything else.
Right.
So then I swapped to English teaching, to become an English teacher. I finished that,
Mm-hmm.
but that wasn't it for me either. And from there on, I basically just like rolled into a couple of jobs just by pure chance. So
Mm-hmm.
that degree is just like wasting away.
Well, I know something about degrees wasting away. I got a bachelor's in philosophy, so um so graphic design and communication, is that like posters, like banners for businesses? Like what would you do with that exactly?
Yeah, that, but also um like web design, stuff like that, where it's like really think
Mm-hmm.
about the user experience for things. So like,
Okay. Yeah.
one of the big ones was interface as well, where it's like, how do
Mm-hmm.
people experience this,
Right. Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
how do you best use it for communication, like colors, like what
Mm-hmm.
colors should you be using here, and what shapes, even like how do you look into that.
Mm-hmm.
That's also the first time I was like, universities are bad. Like legitimately, I came into year one on that education, and we had a teacher who didn't know Photoshop, and they were supposed to teach us Photoshop. And I was like,
Oh no.
yeah, and I was like, well, why are you teaching this? They're like, why? They didn't have anyone else, so I had to do this. And I already knew Photoshop, so I
Oh, let's
legitimately,
teach the class then. Yeah.
yeah, that legitimately that's how I became a TA.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, and like the funniest thing was, as a TA, I still had to take the test and everything, but the teacher was
Yeah.
legitimately having me make the test. I was like, this can't be ethical. And it's like, no, no, it's like it's fine. Like I made the test. He's like, I'll jumble up the answers. I'm like, I still know the answer. It's like, so yeah, I made the test and everything. I was like, this can't be right.
Yeah.
And one of the other things, and this is a story I've shared on stream before. Uh,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
we had a teacher who came in and like, she didn't know, because she was a Mac user, which is already like,
Mm-hmm.
get out of here. No, but she didn't know how to close the start menu on Windows. She accidentally clicked start because she thought that was going to start the program she wanted, which like,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then she didn't know how to get rid of the start menu.
Oh
So she clicked
no.
on, in Dutch it says afsluiten, which means like close, which is like shut down your entire PC. And she clicked that.
Oh no.
Yeah, she clicked, and the
Yeah.
PC was shutting down. She was like, what's happening? What's happening? And I just like stood up. I was done with that shit. I already did like a year before that. And
Yeah.
I just stood up and I walked out, and she's like, where are you going? I'm like, didn't even say anything. I just walked out of that class, and I just like, the next time I saw that like lady was when I picked up my tests, and it's like, I don't.
And so, you said you basically just kind of like found jobs and just what came your way. And
Yeah.
are you are you content with that, or are you wanting to pursue something else, or is that good
Oh,
for now?
it's difficult. Like my original job during university, I worked in a store.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and from there on, I got a job at like a nearby university, not the one I went to, but like a different university, and I worked
Mm-hmm.
in like it was a startup company because the universities start businesses all the time, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I worked for this like little startup company that was basically meant to be like a magnet for like robotics companies, like basically to get them all to like settle nearby so that they could benefit
Mm-hmm.
from each other's research and also from the university. And in that company, I did everything. Like it's not even a joke. There's like what if you've ever worked in like a really small company, you just need to do
Mm-hmm.
multiple things. So I was from
Right.
like I was front desk employee, receptionist almost. I was project manager. I was event manager. I was IT guy because I knew the most about PCs. So you're automatically the IT guy. And it was so many things that I had to do. That was such a fun job.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there were issues, but like my daily life was fun. And then I rolled into the board game store, and it just all happened without me even thinking about it. Just like I got a job offer, I got a job offer.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that was fun. And now I do freelance video editing. And yeah, I want more. Like I definitely have thought about like what is next in life.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
where do I go from here? Because
Mm-hmm.
I love what I do, but I don't see myself doing this all my life. It's difficult being a freelancer, right? You have to pay taxes over what you earn. You have to like think
Mm-hmm.
about sick leave and vacation time because normally when you work a job, that's just all included. And here's like, well,
Right.
if I'm not
Yeah.
working, I'm not working, so I'm not making money. I don't like they don't care that I'm sick, right? Like that's a client, they pay me per hour. They're not gonna pay me because I'm sick. So you have to like save up money and all that stuff, and there's a lot of stress with it.
Right.
So
Yeah, that makes sense.
eventually, I'd like to do something else. I don't know what yet,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah.
maybe something in I've been thinking about this, like maybe something in managing or something like that, where
Mm-hmm.
because I like working with people and I like helping people learn.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
maybe in that regard.
Yeah, it sounds like you have essentially it sounds like you have like startup experience, and so
Yeah. Oh, it's
um
wild.
yeah. Um okay, so as far as Twitch goes, how did you come across Twitch and when?
When it was still called Justin.
Really, that long ago?
Yeah, I've been around for a while. Um, but mostly because of me gravitating towards that was because a lot of the people I like to watching YouTube were starting up Twitch streams, and Justin streams
Mm,
originally and then Twitch streams.
mhm.
And that's how I really ran into it. And I I, I was mostly like, a, how do you say that? Like just a passerby from time. Like, oh, I'll just check out this person on Twitch quickly, or like I'll just go there because their YouTube
Mhm,
videos
mhm.
that they're live now or whatever. I
Yeah.
never really became ingrained in the website until the pandemic.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, which is where it's like, okay, now you have this social space where you can actually hang out live and talk to people.
Yeah, yeah. And like who were you watching on YouTube that would kind of refer you over to like watch Twitch?
Oh, there was a couple.
Hmm.
One of the big ones is this fighting game guy called Max Dude. He's massive in that space.
Maximilian dude.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yep, yeah, exactly. And I've been watching Max since so long ago. I legitimately I think like his first year of content creation on YouTube, I was there
Mm-hmm.
because I'm a big fighting game guy. I did so much for the fighting game community. And he would post videos
Whoa.
like, "Hey, I'm live on Twitch now," so it's like, go there and check him
Mm-hmm.
out.
What fighting games did you play? What were you into as far as fighting games?
A lot, legitimately everything. Killer Instinct, the original, also the remake or the new
Mm.
version, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, Tekken, the big ones, but also some weird ones. Like it's like if it was a fighting
Okay,
game and it was
so
accessible, I would probably be
mhm.
there.
Okay, so honestly, that's something I didn't know about you, and now we have to fight. Whether that's on Street Fighter 6 or Tekken 7,
No,
because
no,
I'm
Tekken 8.
not Tekken 8. Okay.
When it comes out, Tekken
All
8.
right, yeah, we need to fight on Tekken 8.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and then okay, so it was you said at the pandemic is when you started streaming, and
Yeah.
what was it that like what was the trigger you decide like, okay, I want to start streaming now? Like,
So I've always kind of wanted to do YouTube um from like very early on. I remember watching you probably know this as well, like when YouTube gaming was basically people putting like COD matches out as like one video. And I always wanted to do that as well. I was like, I want to make YouTube videos as well, but like it's always so difficult with like hardware because I didn't have the right mic or like recording software. It was always difficult to get into
yeah,
that,
yeah.
and finding the time for it with like
Mm-hmm.
work at school and all that stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
it's something that always in the back of my mind. Like I would love to do this, but I I just don't know. And then in the
Mm-hmm.
pandemic, it's like, well, now I've got time. So that was a big trigger. But also because I
Yeah.
met all these other people who were streamers and who were doing things. I was like, wow, you know, I was jealous of them doing that. I was like, I want to give it a go. So that's when I really was like, okay, I'm gonna commit and start streaming and doing my own thing.
Yeah.
Because I remember, um, like if you were really to ask like the trigger for everything on Twitch, there's
Mm-hmm.
this. Well, it's happening soon again as well. By the way, GGQ, speed runs. I'm massive into
Yeah,
speed runs as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
And there was this one speedrunner there, Bokbasup, who was doing Resident Evil stuff.
Yeah.
And I watched him play, and I was like, "This guy sounds cool. Like, I like the way he talks, like the way his charisma, basically." So I looked him up on YouTube, and this is
Mm-hmm.
massive library of him just doing different speedruns. So I started watching those, like kind of my binge watch thing at the early pandemic.
Yeah.
And then I saw like at some point it was like in his description or something like that. He had a link to his Twitch. I was like, "Oh, he streams on Twitch too. Let me go check him out."
Mm-hmm.
So I clicked and it was live at the time. Like massive coincidence. I was playing this game called Phantasmagoria 2. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
at the end he decided to rate the only other people who were streaming that at the time. And it was a group of streamers called the Ghost Maidens, or the two people streaming together.
Yeah.
And that's where I like met a lot of these other streamer people and like other people who really made me want to
Mm-hmm.
stream. And that was like the
Nice.
big crux of it. And like from that one raid, I can literally trace like a lineage. Like I wouldn't have met any of you guys if it wasn't. Well, probably maybe you because of Snap, right? But there's so
Yeah.
many people who I wouldn't have met if it wasn't for that.
Mm-hmm. Also it's kind of insane. Like of all the people that I've interviewed, like everyone, like so many of them say that they watch Twitch somewhere because of like GDQ at some point.
Yeah,
Um
GDQ is big.
yeah.
It's fun. I like I said,
And
as someone who's done speedruns myself, it's just so much fun to watch, and I watch these weird games.
mm-hmm.
Because not only do they play popular games and games that I like, and you just see them absolutely destroy a game, right? You're like, whoa.
Yeah.
It took me 6 months to beat this game.
Yeah.
But you also see some weird games in there, and it's like, wow, I didn't even know this game existed.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And what did you speed run?
I've done a bunch of Dark Souls, Resident Evil. Um,
Oh, okay.
I've dabbled in Mario 64. It's a fun one. I think that's like everyone's first
Um,
speed run. It's like my first speed run is Mario 64. But I never got into like the I want to push for world record time space. It was always just like
okay.
I want to see if I
Yeah,
can do this
sure. Yeah.
faster. Um,
hmm
so that was a lot of fun.
Um, I had the speedrun bug for a little bit. Like I did it with Streets of Rage 4.
That's a good one.
Um,
That's a fun game.
yeah, that's a fun one to do. Yeah, and Mega Man X.
Okay. Yeah, Mega Man X is one of those games. I think a lot of people have kind of like the speedrun thing there with like
Yeah.
unintentionally speedrun, right? Where they like get the optimization for the stages. Like, okay, if you do it in this
hmm
order, you can kill all the bosses easy.
Yeah.
And now
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
amped it up to like 11 and you got speed running.
Yeah. Um, and then as far as the format of your stream, so I would say like you're a variety streamer, but in a lot of different senses.
Yeah.
Like not just in terms of the games that you play, but like sometimes you're doing just chatting. You'll be talking about events, talking about games that are coming out. Sometimes you'll be gaming with people in your community, and then sometimes the games change. So like you're a variety streamer in many senses of the word.
Yeah. How's it going, Minister Gold? She's in. Yeah, she's in the canon. Look.
Normal day.
Look at my stream, Cherry. This is amazing. Yeah, that's
Nobody. Just
Would you like me to dragon?
Sit
No.
straight, you
Dragon
bitch.
these nuts.
What?
Dragon these nuts.
That's not funny.
Fuck you, it is.
No.
Uh-oh. Did you see that skill with the whip? Did you see that twip with the whip? The twip with the whip? Yeah. It's part of the ADHD, but also part of making sure it stays fun for me.
Yeah, for sure, makes sense.
I love covering games. That's again one of the old jobs. Like I used to review video games, and I love talking about that, and I love showing them off, and I love being there when a video game gets announced, like when something cool comes out, like sharing that with people.
Yeah.
But also, I just like showing gameplay. I like hey, I like this game. I want to share this with people. But I mean, I think every streamer has. It's like you get into these ruts where like I've been doing the same thing, or I'm not feeling it. And in the very early days of stream, I was like, I felt like I had to finish a game on stream because I started it, and then I realized no one cares. Like, I mean, sure, people care, right? But like, what I want on Twitch is I want people to be there for me. I'm selfish.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's also part of the reason why I stopped streaming Snap and Dead by Daylight, but because I noticed that people weren't there for me. And that, again, that's fine if you want to be there. Like, you choose how you spend your free time, and I'm just glad that people click that link and, come hang out. But then you get these things where like you stop playing the game and like your viewership drops. So I was like, okay, that's not it. So I also kind of challenged myself to switch it up so that people don't get used to one thing from me.
That's fair. I think at the end of the day, like whoever comes in, I want to like you, and I hope you like me, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
And,
it really sucks because you see this happening in every level of Twitch, right? Like, some of the biggest Marvel Snap or Dead by Daylight streamers, and then you see them play another game, and their viewership is halved, and you're like, wow, you normally sitting at like 6,000 people, and now you have 3,000 people watching just because you're playing a different game. And that must be disheartening. Like for me, when I lose, like, when you see your average viewership go down by like 1, I'm like, oh my god, is this the end?
Like I admit that when it comes to choosing the games that I play, part of it is because like I do enjoy the challenge of playing Kaizo Mario, but it's also because I do pick something to stay the same on my channel. But at the same time, I can't do just Kaizo. I'm gonna go nuts. I have to have games that change because I like seeing new games, new ideas. So I can relate to not like sticking to one game necessarily.
Yeah, it's good to have some sort of consistency, like a fallback plan almost. But for me, that's usually just like I'll just talk. I've said this before. If I could, I would be a just chatting streamer, like 100%. Well, not really 100%, but
if you could, meaning if you could like be big with it, or just if you could just like, what do you mean?
So this is something that happens like in general because Twitch is unpredictable. And you can never predict who is going to show up and how many people are going to show up. So sometimes like I really want to talk about something, and then there's like 3 people watching, and you're like, well, that's not happening. And then I'll just play a game because I can talk about that, and even if no one's interacting, I can do my thing. And some days, like even when more people are watching, some days chat is just quiet, right? You have a very quiet chat day. So it's unpredictable, and I think there needs to be this number of people in chat where you can reliably be like, okay, now we can have a conversation, where it becomes a just chatting stream instead of just me rambling on for an hour and a half. And sometimes it happens organically where like I wasn't even planning on doing just chatting today, right? I just like to start my stream in just chatting, just to like, hey,
Yeah.
hello, I'm here. What are we doing? How are we doing?
Yeah.
But then someone mentioned something, and they're like, well, okay, I guess this is something I want to comment on, and you get this whole conversation. And like I've legitimately had streams that went on for 3 hours where I was just talking with people because the topic was right, because people were there to interact and to give feedback and to share their opinion. And I always say I don't think there's there's definitely wrong opinions. Okay, there's problematic opinions, but in terms of discussions, I would like to hear either side, and as long as it's presented in a respectful manner, I will engage with you, and it's definitely the right way to do it. Like I'm so open with my political views, for example, and my stance on things. And sometimes I people have told me this, like, you kind of scare away the other sides. I think that's not what I want. It's like I'm just that open with it, and like if you come into my stream, this happens a lot. We get a lot of trolls. I have the Satanist tag on there, mostly as a joke. Like I definitely do identify in that regard, but like you get trolls who come in and you're like, I can identify you right away just because of the way they come in. It's like, so what's Satanism? It's like, well, okay, you clicked on the tag. Clearly you were looking for this. And you come in here, it's like, what's Satanism? Or what's like
I love how they ask you what Satanism is. Like they're on the internet, they
yeah.
could look it up, but they ask you.
Yeah. Yeah, but I had one recently was like, he came in, it's like, what's demisexual? I was like, well, how did you click on the tag? Like you typed it in randomly and you got something. Like you know exactly what you're doing, and you're out for trolling, and it's so obvious. Like it's so obvious. But I'm open for discussion. I'm like I get this a lot with like you get religious people in stream who click on the Satanist tag, and apparently I've offended their whole family or something like that just by existing.
Yeah.
And they're always so rude about it. Like, all right, cool, I'll just ban you. Thanks for the clicks. Thanks for the views. But I've had this one guy who was in my stream for like a good couple of weeks, who was actually having a conversation, and I like that. It was a lot of fun, and I don't mind hearing your viewpoint of it. I don't mind hearing like as long as it's done respectfully. But then in the end, he did kind of show his true colors. It was like, okay, now it's problematic again.
That's too bad. Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I really like about Twitch. Where you can like, Twitch is both the most biggest group of different people on the internet, thrown together, and it's at the same time also the most like-minded group of people. It's scary how Twitch made me go, I'm not unique.
It's interesting. It's actually, I think Twitch is, in my experience, has been one of the nicer places on the internet to be. Like you can encounter a lot of assholes on the internet.
Oh yeah.
And there are definitely assholes on Twitch, but I feel like I've encountered less of them on Twitch.
Yeah, I feel like the assholes on Twitch kind of just like they flag themselves way too quick. So it's easy to identify them and be like, okay, I don't want you here.
Right.
You don't belong in my community. And I'm also very honest about that. Like, it's like a house. Every Twitch chat is like a house, right? Like you come into my house and I tell you take your shoes off, and you take your shoes off, or you're not coming inside. And if you don't want to take your shoes off, that's fine. But then you're not coming into my house, and we can have a mutual understanding about that. We don't have to hate each other. But sometimes people are like, I'm gonna barge into your house with my mud-covered shoes, and I'm gonna track mud all over your floor. And I'm like, okay, well, this is gonna remove you from the premise.
Yeah, exactly. As far as do you think about viewer numbers, or do you try to avoid looking at them? Like, how do you feel about that?
Oh, it's stressful. I had this yesterday actually, where it's the brain. It's 100% a brain thing, and I'm aware of it. But like, try rationalizing this when you're feeling emotions, right? Like, I had a really good stream on the day before. Was it Thursday? And then on Friday you're having like a less good stream, and in your mind it's like, oh, it's all crumbling down, it's done, it's imposter syndrome as well. It's like, see, it happened. People realize I'm not fun, and I shouldn't be looking at the viewer numbers, but I do because it's live feedback as well, right? It helps you see like, is this working? Is this not working? And also
It's
because I do like getting free games, because like getting free games from some of these websites is like, and you need to maintain an
yes.
average viewership for that. So there's also the stress there. It's like, oh, my
Yeah.
average dropped, so I'm not eligible anymore.
Yeah, that's happened to me before. I wanted to play a game, so you've referred me to a few sites for getting those games, and there was a game I wanted to play. It said I think it's called the CCV.
Yeah.
And I was below that. I was like, oh, okay, I guess I just won't get that game then.
Oh yeah, it's happened. And
Yeah.
inversely also, at some point I got a really, really big raid. Like the biggest raid I've ever gotten was like 2.6 thousand people. It was wild. I
Wow.
also
Nice.
so wasn't ready for that to happen. I was so think I could have done way better. Like everyone always says, like Twitch is luck. If you get a big raid,
Yeah.
you've got it made. No, you don't. You need to know how to handle that
No.
as well. And I didn't. But my average viewership jumped up, and I was like, oh, I'm all of a sudden I can claim more games. I like went to these websites and just started claiming games. It's like, oh.
Like so first, before I do want to comment on it's not sufficient just to have a big raid. But who was the raid from?
Oh, I wish I remember. I feel real bad. It's like a year ago now as well.
Okay, gotcha.
It was a Phasmophobia streamer. I know that because I was streaming Phasmo.
Okay,
And
okay.
out of all the games as well, it's so difficult to mid game be like, okay, everyone, I know I'm playing with 3 other people, but I need y'all to wait for me now because I gotta welcome this raid.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I just wasn't ready for that. Everyone likes the style that they are, right? If I get a big raid, oh my god, I got no, you don't. Like I got a ton of followers out of that, and I got a ton of, it's also overwhelming. Holy shit!
Right.
It's like wild.
How did you handle it when the raid came in? Like,
I mean, I tried to be like, hey, my name's Seth. This is what I do, but I still want to play the game, and still like I got overwhelmed.
Yeah.
With like all the follows and all that stuff, and like emotionally as well, you're trying to hold it back.
Right.
So it's just like it's difficult, and like you really need to think about this. Like, and this might sound a little selfish, but after that, I really went, okay, what if this happens again? Because I never even thought about it. Like, what do I do when a really big raid comes in? Because when you get a big raid, like any kind of raid actually on Twitch, I noticed that raiding on Twitch sometimes is like has no payoff. And that for the record, I don't raid people because I expect to get something out of it. I don't expect people to raid me because I get something out of it. But it happens. Sorry?
Oh, I was coughing.
Oh, okay. But yeah, it happens so often that you raid someone and no one follows that person. Or you get a shout out and you get no follows from that. And like I said, I don't raid people because I expect a reward, right? That's not what I want. But I do notice that you kind of need to be ready for it, because you're going to lose a lot of people. Like probably half of the people in that raid are out. The moment the channel changes, they're out. And the remaining people are probably like a mix of lurkers and people who are like passing, like, okay, I'll stick around for a few seconds just to see what this person is about. And you need to convince those people to not click away and to click follow. And you need to be ready for that. You need to have a plan. You need to be like, okay, what am I gonna do once I get a big raid?
Right.
Or any kind of raid.
Yeah, I feel like raiding is kind of analogous to visiting a new website, where you have like 6 seconds to capture their attention or they leave.
Exactly.
And as far as whether it's a big raid or a small raid or just a single person coming to visit your channel, what I feel like has to happen is you have to convince the viewer what your value is. What are they getting from watching your stream?
Yeah.
And then if you can convince them of value, then that's why they'll stay for that.
Yeah, you have to give them the elevator pitch. And this is something I'm still working on this, but this is something I would tell to anyone, like, practice that. Like, pretend you're getting a raid, and treat every raid the same as well. Like if you're getting raided by one person, if you're getting raided by 1,000,000 people, treat them the same.
Yeah, that's good advice.
And give your
Yeah.
elevator pitch. What do you do? What do they get in? Like you said, what do they get out of you? And what can they expect as well? Like how often will you be live? What do you do?
Right.
And something that I personally want to do is I want to convince the people who are already with me to go reward that person by giving them a follow back. Like consider checking this person out. What do they do?
Right. Yeah.
If it's someone I know, I can be like, oh, this is Minister Gould. He does a lot of Kaizen. He does, I can tell you something about you. But if it's an unknown person,
Right.
the least I can do is like, okay, what do you do? What do you stream? Convince my people to give you something back. Because I definitely think Twitch is one of those platforms where you have to kind of grow with each other. Like, I don't want to sound like I'm speaking ill about other streamers, but you definitely have these streamers who are very much like, they want to remain in a bubble. And they have like rules where it's like no other emotes in my chat, no mentioning other streamers in my chat. Like they just want to pretend like they're the only person on the internet. And I understand why they do it. And I don't have any sort of like ill intent towards them, but that's not what I want, right? If I get a new follower, there's a sound outside. If I get a new follower, I want to be like, yo, have you seen these other streamers as well? Maybe if you like me, maybe you like them too.
Yeah, I mean, you can't monopolize viewers. You can't control where they go. And just be honest. If you think they're cool, then go check them out.
Yeah,
So
exactly. And especially thinking that people like that, it's almost treating people as if they don't know anything else, right? Because if I think like, oh, if I show this viewer Minister Gold, I'm gonna lose this viewer. Well, here's the thing. I was gonna lose that person anyway, right? So I might as well show them the alternatives to help them around.
Yeah.
Because like at the end of the day, if you watch my stream, I'm so grateful because time is precious. And even if you click on my link and lurk and never do anything else, you still took the time to click on my stream. And I want to reward that by being as open and honest as I can. And as respectful of your time as I can. And I don't want to be like, okay, your time is mine now. No, that's
And going back to like raids and shoutouts, I do have an expectation, and everyone is entitled to do what you want. It's your stream, but for me, I think it is like etiquette that if someone raids you, then shout them out. Not necessarily like if it's an unfamiliar person that's raiding you. I'm not necessarily saying go follow them, but at least go take a look at them and see if you find them interesting.
Yeah, it's like the reward, right? It's like this is all I can do is tell people to, hey, go consider checking this person out as well because they took the time to rate me. And I would like to reward that. And I also make a point of like I will open their tab and I'll come back to that later to check out their VOD and check out what they're saying or check out what they're doing.
Yeah. Also, did you happen to ask your server if they had any questions for the podcast or no?
They didn't have any questions. I asked on stream if people had questions, but
okay, yeah, no worries. Okay. Well, I have one more question for you. It's a question that I ask everybody, which is if you were to give advice to someone who's thinking about starting streaming, what would you advise them?
Don't. No, that's half joking, but half serious. If you want to start streaming, really consider what you have to do as a streamer, because you're committing time and effort into this, and it's gonna take a long time before it gets any sort of payoff. So if you want to start streaming, think about like, okay, you're gonna have to go live probably at least 2 to 3 times a week for a few hours. And you're gonna have to put yourself out there, and you're gonna have to be consistent with it. That's important because there's a lot of streamers who don't have a schedule, and they're just like, I'll go live whenever I feel like it. And for some people that works, but for most people, you need to have a schedule and you need to stick with it. And basically, no matter what, follow that schedule. Right? There's always exceptions, but follow that. And you need to have decent hardware. You need to be able to stream. You need to have a cam. You need to have a mic. You need to have lights. So really think to yourself, do I want to do this? Do I want to invest in this?
Mm-hmm.
And what do I want to get out of it? Right? What do you want to, as a streamer, what do you want to get out of it? Do you just want to show your face to the internet and share what you're thinking, what you're doing? That's perfectly fine. But don't go into it thinking that you're going to break out and be like the next millionaire streamer, because you're not.
Sure.
You're not. That is, there's millions of Twitch streamers, and out of those, if you get an average viewership of 5 or more, you're in the top like 5%. You've made it into the big leagues. And out of those people, like there's so few of them who can actually make a living off of Twitch. That you just have to think to yourself, is this ever going to happen? Probably not. So start doing it for fun, start doing it as a hobby. But really think about it and make a plan. Like, you know, how long, which days, what are you streaming, and be ready.
Basically, if you're thinking about streaming, you're suggesting, you know, are you willing to commit the time to it regularly? Are you willing to put in the monetary investments?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And again, as a freelancer, there's always this thing in my mind, like if I was working now, you know, I could be earning money. But also there's other things you could be doing instead of streaming, right? Like, it's very demotivating sitting there with no one in your chat, you know, a few streams in a row. So get ready to grind and get ready to put yourself out there and find a friend, like a real life friend, or like a partner or whatever. Find someone who you like can convince to be there with you for the first few streams. Just have someone in your chat to give you feedback and chat to you.
Tell me if this sounds counterintuitive to you. What I think is, if you're starting streaming and you want to grow on Twitch, don't think about growing.
Oh, for sure. Like, because it's not going to happen. Yeah, it sounds negative, but like, it's so gradual. It's like you get one follower, you know, how often do you get a follower, right? Do you get one per stream? Do you get one per week? Because sometimes I've gone a week without getting a new follower. So just think about it as, I'm doing this for fun. Start doing it.
Yeah.
And also, please, I know there's a lot of streamers who don't have webcams, but consider at the very least a webcam or something like that. Something for people to latch onto, something for people to find you through. Have a decent mic. It doesn't even need to be an expensive mic. Just have some filters on there, and you know, present that to people. And if you really don't want to show your face, that's fine. There's a lot of streamers who don't have a webcam, but it's a lot more difficult without them with.
You know, I'm really glad you mentioned that, because if I was looking for someone to raid and you didn't have your camera up, then there's a very high chance I wouldn't have raided you.
Yeah, that's exactly the same way. I always want to see something, right, when I'm raiding. And there's a couple of streamers I watch who don't have webcams, and again, it's totally fine, right? Like, but it's so much more difficult to get people to click on you, to stay there.
Yeah.
To distinguish
because I want to
yourself.
connect to you. So.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, that's our interview. Make sure you go check out SethTheHex. I'll spell it out in case I need to. So SETH the THE Hex HEX.
That's me.
And I forgot to do that at the beginning. I will do that when I make my intro for you. So sorry about that.
No worries.
But yeah, go check out Seth. A lot of fun to talk to. He has a lot to say. Looking forward to Pal World, also coming out January 19th. Pokemon with guns.
Oh, I'm so hyped.
So yeah, that'll be really exciting. So go check out Seth. And Seth, thank you for doing this interview with me.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for having me.